I've been looking after worms for quite a while now, and this mini flow-through worm bin is my favorite way to look after worms and recycle kitchen scraps and use them in the garden. This is just a black and yellow tote that you can get from Home Depot. And the only modifications I've done is I drilled some very small holes right near the top to let in some oxygen. But other than that, it's just a tote. Always feed on one side, and I move everything over every week. That leaves me fresh worm castings on the other side, always ready to harvest. The last thing you'll see here is this, little sheet of bubble wrap. What this does is it locks in the moisture over here, which gets the worms to come up to the surface and eat everything here. And it also leaves this uncovered so this side dries out. And the worms don't like it as much because it's dry. So we got a ton of good worm castings and it's spring. So we're going to start by just go ahead and grabbing some of our finished stuff. And, this is one of the best parts of this. You'll get an occasional worm in there. There was a little one. But for the most part, this stuff is dry and ready to go in the garden. And you don't lose very many worms. You might lose one or two, maybe a cocoon here and there. But for the most part, there's no sifting involved. You just can grab it and you're ready to go. Actually, seeing more young worms in here than usual. So this is enough to get the plants that I wanted to feed this week fed. And so we're going to stop here. And then the last thing I do is as I move it over, it allows me to reach down and pull everything up, check on what's going on, because I like to see it. I do this twice a month, once every 2 weeks. And this allows me to get like oxygen down there, but it also lets me to, just sort of check it, see what's going on. And I pull the finished stuff over. And I can throw anything that needs a little bit longer to work on off to the side. So I'm left with just the best finished worm castings ready for my garden. So that was mostly the finished stuff. This stuff here I put in originally more than a month ago, right here. And all I'm doing is just going through, fluffing it up, pulling out any larger chunks. But the most important part is A, moving it over to the right so I have more room to feed, and B, getting oxygen down here so that no anaerobic, the bacteria that grows without oxygen starts growing. That's the stuff that smells like a sewer. So if you're getting that, your nose is going to tell you. All right. So now we're going to get to some of the stuff where I fed more recently, and you can tell right away because as soon as I start flipping this over, instead of going from like an occasional baby worm, I immediately go to a big ball of worms all over the place. They're going to town on this avocado, which seems like it needs a little bit more time. So it's going off to the side. Look at that. Worms like avocado. Heard it here first. This is a pretty active worm bin. I have two. This one's much more active than the other one. That was a bit of sweet potato that we harvest from the garden that we never quite got to. So those potatoes and starches, they take a little while longer. It's not highly recommended to put them in, but you can put some in moderation. It won't harm your bin. Okay. All right, just a little bit more to go. Here's all the freshest stuff next. yeah, they're just to the gills in here. So I'm not seeing any of like the easily broken down stuff here. I'm seeing a little bit more of the tougher stuff, like those yeah, these slices of potato that I mentioned. They're like not really getting into here. So these will probably be like a more longer term thing that I'll have to keep putting in, which is why it's not recommended you put too much in there, because it takes them a while to go through them. So I'm just gonna feed him, you know, stuff that they can break down easily this time. So they've got a choice of the harder to break down stuff that they'll get to eventually, plus the easier stuff that I'm gonna add to the bin today. But yeah, there are a good number of worms in this bin. I saw there's a little bit of greenery right in the corner. We might not have gotten to it. So we'll get to that next time. All right, so let's leave this mounded up. We're gonna cover it over with some of this more fresh stuff, and we're gonna feed some of the new stuff in here. So as always, we start with bedding. This helps control moisture. If it ever gets too moist in there, I can always add a little bit of extra bedding. And if it ever gets too dry because I added too much bedding, that's easy, just add water. I always give my worms sort of a baseline of the coffee me and my wife drink the previous week. So I just take the grounds and, you know, mix them into the bedding. It's, you know, just a really easy, high nitrogen, easy thing for them to eat. Makes great fertilizer. One less thing going to the landfill. Instead, fertilizing my garden. All right, next we're adding in these ground eggshells. These are, worms have gizzards like birds, so they need some kind of aggregate. If you don't want to grind up eggshells, you can just use sand. But it is important to put something in there. And now we're going to use this week's leftovers. So we got some strawberries from the garden that had been eaten by pill bugs. And also this week we got some banana peels and a old winter squash that went bad, unfortunately. So that's what's on the menu, boys. So let's spread it out. I added a layer of the more, like the half finished stuff, just so that it's all stacked up. It allows them more surface area for them to get at it. Then if you just directly put everything on top. Let's put some of this stuff back in here. Mound it up. This stuff is going to be eaten down, so this one's going to settle more than the rest. And then add a little bit of water too, just because didn't really need it, but it wasn't too dry, but it definitely wasn't too wet, so it's probably on the way of getting too dry, so I just added a little bit. And that's it for this week. I mean, it's like a 10-minute process. You get rid of all your food, you get some nice stuff to add to your garden, and it's just fun to check on the worms, see how they're doing. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.